So you want a 9 in GCSE Computer Science. Join the club. You probably already know roughly what to do. Make flashcards for theory, practice Python, do pseudocode problems. I mean, don't get me wrong, it definitely doesn't hurt to do that. But let's be real, it's not enough to get you a 9. Last year, only 8.5% of people got a 9 in computer science, and I was one of them. But I didn't need to spend hours in my room locked away writing code, or rot away doing flashcards and past papers to do this. Instead, I just followed an insanely simple strategy that let me cook the exams without even revising that much. Alright, let's get into it. The fastest way to raise up your grade is to drop fewer marks on the programming paper. Getting better at coding is the easiest way to get closer to a 9, and you don't even need to memorize anything. All you need to do is practice. Some people try to use notes or flashcards to learn their Python syntax. Don't do that, it's terrible and it's not going to get you anywhere. Instead, like I said, what you need to do is just practice. You can use past paper questions, but if you've finished all of those, you can just give ChatGPT this prompt and it'll generate up some new questions for you to do. The important thing is to not run your code until you are 100% sure it has no syntax errors in it, because in the exam, you're not going to be able to run your code. Once you're sure of this, run your code and see if it does what you want it to do, because trust me, watching your code run properly is the single most satisfying thing in the world. If you want a bit more of a challenge, then there's this really cool website called Project Euler, which has a bunch of computational thinking problems ranging from interesting and challenging to absolutely diabolical. If you manage to work out the first, 7 Project Euler problems, you're pretty much never gonna have to revise paper 1 again, and you're almost guaranteed to get over 90% in it. I already know what you're thinking.
What do you mean that's only half of paper 2?
And I know. Paper 2 has a bunch of other questions like these. They may look different, but they actually share one thing in common. You just need to know the technique. If we imagine a spectrum of subjects, from fact-based subjects to concept-based subjects, we can see history over here, English Lit over here, and computer science paper 2 all the way over here. What this means is that memorization-based techniques like flashcards aren't going to get you anywhere here. The one way you can get better at solving every question that I just popped up is doing practice questions. If you need a source for questions, you can just Google OCR GCSE Computer Science questions by topic, and you'll get hundreds for you to sit down and work through. When I was revising in the run-up to the exams, revising theory felt like so much more of a grind than revising programming. It just felt like there was this huge wall of content that I needed to somehow get through before May, and it might feel like at this point it's too late to get it all done. It definitely felt like that for me. But if you just follow my tips to revise efficiently, you definitely have enough time to get through it all before the exams roll around. The first thing you should do is determine how well you know the content. I think we've all had that moment where we sit down to revise and we realise we're learning instead of revising. And that's fine, even now. But at this point, let's face it, you don't have an hour to sit down and learn each topic. You need to revise efficiently. The way I did this was by using this really useful channel called Know It All Ninja. They have a really concise, really detailed video about pretty much every topic in the GCSE. But the way I managed to keep it in my head, instead of just going in one ear and out the other, was that during Easter, I sat down and watched the videos for every topic that I wasn't 100% on, but while watching them, I typed down notes like I would in class. I then converted these notes into flashcards, and then every day I spent around 15 minutes going through them, using a special technique that I'm going to cover in the next part. By the time the end of Easter rolled around, I pretty much knew the content like the back of my hand, and I could focus on nailing down exam technique. Alright, so I just foreshadowed my flashcards technique, and believe me, it is an absolute game changer. In the beginning of year 11, like most people, I just set aside some time every now and then to casually flick through my flashcards. And while it wasn't useless, it definitely wasn't the best use of my time. But then, during Christmas break, I found an absolutely brilliant way to get the information from my flashcards into my long-term memory in a relatively short amount of time. What you need to do is get your flashcards up on Quizlet, copy them, and then paste them into ChatGPT. Then, you need to ask it to ask you questions based on those flashcards one at a time, and obviously respond to it. Even better, if you go into the personalization settings and ask it to be extra harsh, you're going to be getting a ton of feedback that's going to be really useful to help you fill in the gaps in your knowledge. If you do this for long enough on the free version, eventually you're going to get a timeout, but this is actually a really good sign that you've studied for long enough and you need to take a break or work on another subject. But if you find that this method does work really well for you, I cannot recommend enough just to cough up the 20 quid and get ChatGPT Pro, because this method absolutely saved me in a bunch of other subjects too. So hopefully, by the time Easter ends, you're gonna know all the content, and you're probably gonna be wondering what to do next. What I'm about to tell you isn't exactly a shocker. Do past papers, obviously, right? But the critically important thing is that you need to mark your own papers. And I don't mean just flicking through your paper, having the mark scheme up in front of you, going, and kinda. You have to be absolutely ruthless, because the examiners are too. Computer science mark schemes are annoying. They're terrible. But if they are one thing, they're consistent. There are a few very specific phrases that you need to write down word for word to get some of the marks, and you can find them just by reverse engineering the mark scheme. If after Easter you just sit down once a week and do a paper, and then the next day meticulously go over it, by the time the exams roll around, you're going to be completely ready for whatever they throw at you. I know it might seem like a ton of work now, but trust me, if you just follow these tips and get started today, by the time the exams roll around, you're going to feel completely ready. I know for me, about 2 weeks before the exam started, I just didn't feel stressed anymore. I knew that I had them under control. Thank you for watching, consider subscribing, and good luck. It's time to lock in.